Let us rethink what we've been taught about rumination. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. A question that begins, can my brain be fixed? And continues, I've always been prone to overthinking, but it wasn't until a year ago when I was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder, which has helped me in understanding the patterns of my thoughts and how they relate to my emotional experiences. So I'm going to jump in right there. 30 or 50 years ago, a diagnosis of obsessive-compulsive disorder might have been understandable, but not today. That really sounds like a lazy-minded psychologist, perhaps a lazy-minded physician. Even worse. There is a mountain of data that has been sifted and correlated, and we now often rumination is a symptom of neurodivergence. Neurodivergence is not a disorder, it's a neural type. Having red hair or having blonde hair is not a disorder, it's a hair type. Having blue eyes or having green eyes are not disorders, they're an iris type. Having light complexion or having freckles are not disorders, they're a pigment type. There are many anthropologists who believe one of the reasons we are successful as a species is that we have two things. One, the ability to communicate, and two, more than one neurotype, which means the strengths and weaknesses of each neurotype can complement the corresponding weaknesses and strengths of other neurotypes, which, like key and lock or hand and glove, it works out rather well. One time I saw a dermatologist, and I was there because of Medicare, and he stormed into the appointment late. He grabbed my knee, looked at the disorder, literally threw a tube at me, and before he stormed out, I said, well, what's the diagnosis? Dermatitis. What's the cause? I don't care. Wow. So that's a classic example of someone using the least useful diagnosis just to get out off the hook. When I presented his diagnosis to my primary care physician, he shook his head because he'd seen this strategy before. Similarly, by someone saying that your rumination is just OCD, that's the most superficial explanation. It's like someone says, what's red? And you say, a color. Well, what's a color? What's light? What differentiates one light from another light? Go ask a physicist. They'll give you a fascinating answer. So, right off the bat, there is a free database of therapists. Some are psychiatrists, some are psychologists, some are PhDs, some are PsyDs, some are social workers. But all these people have in common is they have made neurodivergence the center of their practice. These are people who eat, drink, and sleep neurodivergency 24 hours a day. These are the people who want doing an evaluation, because they can tell pretty quick whether you are or are not, because they don't want you barking up the wrong tree and wasting what time you have on something that's not going to help you. What's the importance of understanding what's going on? Because, and this is important, rumination is a superpower. Rumination is the most frequent common denominator of quote-unquote natural problem solvers or deep thinkers. Where would our species be if we only had problems and we didn't have problem solvers? Where would our species be if we only had problems and we didn't have deep thinkers? And yes, you might not be ruminating about, how to create sustainable fusion. You might not be thinking about how to institute world peace in our generation. You may be ruminating over a conversation you had in 10th grade. But that's not a flaw. Yes, it can be an inconvenience, but it is not a flaw. It is not a pathology. And when we treat a trait like a pathology, can we mask it? Yes. Can we bury it alive in a great quagmire of prescription drugs? Yes. Will there be people who profit off that? Yes. Will you be one of them? No. Blue eyes or green eyes are not a disorder. Although mitochondrial Eve was African, having light skin is not a disorder. It's just a variation. And yes, you can give someone all sorts of poisons to alter their skin pigment, but it's going to be an analog of quote-unquote normalcy, and it's going to do more harm than good. Someone could strive to stifle your rumination. They might create an analog of neurotypical of a neurotypical person, but it doesn't make you one. And it's going to do far more harm than good. For too many centuries, the normies have said, okay, if you aren't exactly like us, you're broken. You need to be demonized, burnt at the stake, institutionalized, or medicated. And usually it wasn't out of malice. Usually it was out of lazy-mindedness or very, 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 very subtle prejudice. Today we would call that ableism. I'm not sure if that's a perfect word, but I'm sure you get the idea. Let's continue. Well, I've managed to get the more distressing symptoms of the disorder under wraps. I am in a continuous battle to remain present, and it constantly feels like I'm losing. Yes, you're not designed to remain present. So here's the deal. Think of a superhero movie. Think about the first reel, the origin story, where the superhero discovers he or she has powers, and they learn to manage them. And they might even learn their weaknesses. I really love the Bruce Willis movie, Unbreakable. Came out, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, every superhero has their metaphor kryptonite. So it is perfectly understandable that, yes, there are contemplative techniques that can help any neurotype fine-tune their brain. It's kind of like adding oil to a mechanism, making it run more smoothly. It's kind of like washing a plate, washing your utensils before you cook your next meal. So yes, there are wonderfully effective contemplative techniques. I'll show you a handful this morning on this video, on this live stream. But they're not cures. There are ways of coping with our strengths and our weaknesses, making the most of our strengths, efficiently dealing with our weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. We all have strengths. Let's continue. Oh yeah, and by the way, the whole idea of remaining present, the Buddha never taught that. Krishna never taught that. Shiva never taught that. Lao Tzu never taught that. That was invented about 20, 40 years ago. And it's made a lot of people a lot of money. But it's a form of concentration. and some form of indulging or controlling tendencies. We'll get deeper into that in a few minutes. I think at some point in the last few years, my brain has broken. No, it hasn't. It's just not typical. I'm in a constant state of low-level rumination at the best of times. I struggle to remain focused on conversations when people are talking to me. There are many forms of neurodivergence, and that is a common symptom. I can't enjoy movies because I'm never attentive enough to know what's going on. Not uncommon. I can't even go for a walk without constantly thinking, good, if you didn't think, that would be a problem. I've had times where my meditation has calmed my mind down significantly, but it never seems to last. Good, it's not supposed to do that. The purpose of meditation is not to indulge our controlling tendencies. There's a wonderful rap song, and a woman is denigrating the way so many men objectify women. And the rapper is saying, it ain't build a bitch. Meaning that selecting a partner based entirely upon their looks is folly. You need to select a partner based on their heart, and their mind, and their compatibility. Let's continue. So similarly, the meditation that taught by the Buddha, taught by Lao Tzu, taught by the great luminaries is not about controlling our brain, but it's about cooperating with our brain's natural mechanisms that heighten its efficiency. We'll get more into that in a few minutes. The times where I felt alive have been when I've been present, but those times are far and few between. Feeling alive typically isn't because you're feeling present. Typically, it's a description of dopamine. You're feeling a rush of dopamine or a serotonin high. That makes us feel alive. One of the Achilles heel of the of many neurodivergents is a physiological inability to effectively manage dopamine. That's not a character flaw, that's a physiological feature. It's an inconvenient feature, but it's one that has largely responsible for the success of our species. The dissatisfaction to keep tinkering, to keep exploring geographically, intellectually, emotionally, artistically, scientifically. So it is an inconvenient feature, but a useful one. It's not an indictment. I'd love to become present and truly enjoy life again, but it just feels like a tremendous amount of work, and it's far easier for me to simply disassociate into the comfort and disconnect of my ruminative imagination. Does anyone have any good exercises or pointers for me? Yes, I do. I'd prefer to stay away from SSRIs, but it's always an option. Yes, once again, please do not pathologize a neurotype. I'm going to be honest. Not all useful attributes are pleasurable. When we eat tainted food, we have a twin response, actually a three-way response, to sweat out the toxins, to vomit out the food, and to defecate as quickly as possible, and accelerating the rate of peristalsis necessary is excruciating, but it saves our lives. So if in the throes of food poisoning we treat the discomfort of peristalsis, we are undermining our body's ability to purge the poison before it kills us. Similarly, yes, there are facets of rumination that are inconvenient and are scary. And bad counselors can sometimes convince us and scapegoat all our problems on one feature and then convince us we need to get rid of that feature. Beware of stupid people. They can be dangerous. So let's move forward. I've already talked about this link. There's a live version for this link in the description area below the video. This is a free service. I make no commission. I just have a deep allergy to the sufferings of others. So let's talk about ways of coping with the Porsche that is your brain. Meditation can be an excellent tool, but not all meditation strategies are the same. Not all meditation strategies are created equal. And so I would like to put that into perspective for you, if that's okay. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including meditation teachers. I kid you not, the majority are convinced. Being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel is amazing. Only a minority favor being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. That explains why the majority of meditation teachers implore their students to actively concentrate and actively analyze. The problem with that is that the only way to perform those very specific actions is to rely upon the discrete mechanisms found in areas of our brain such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, don't get me wrong. The prefrontal cortex is amazing. If you want to sort, if you want to compare, contrast, calculate, compute, reason, it's amazing. If you want to edit, this is perfect. But like a Stradivarius, it's delicate. It can be overworked. And when we cross a certain line in the sand, our amygdala gets triggered. This almond-sized object right here, which is the seat of aggression and anxiety. So how ironic is it that while pursuing peace through concentration and analysis, we actually generate the opposite of peace? Now for some good news. Our central nervous system is not only comprised of these two items. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So let's turn our attention to the seventh fold of the Buddha's eightfold path, mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to access our sympathetic nervous system, located in the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. This is the opposite of concentration. A lot of people are told, hey, concentrate on your breath. It's always there. But concentration will trigger the amygdala. We're just noticing whatever comes up. What are we doing with our breath? We're treating it like a metronome. And when we notice our body breathing in, we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this, which helps our brain to cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system, helping us to better notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We can notice whole spectrums of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque, and all points in between. And that is a feature. Not a lot of technical insights have been brought about by those who are archetypes, or I should say analogs of Homer J. Simpson. Now, this can seem a trifle overwhelming, yes? That brings us to the eighth fold of the Eightfold Path, meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system located in both the lower third as well as the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Now, you might say, well, if I have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system, why isn't everything a-okay? Well, in a word, Urkel. Due to a quirk of evolution, our brain is as cluttered as the storage area of a hoarder. And there are elbows hitting eyeballs, and people are stepping on dicks all over the place. I tell you, it's a three-ring shit show. But just as an alarm clock can wake you up from the deepest of slumbers, similarly, silently, mentally, and passively reciting the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation can help our brain to align or cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. And silently, mentally, and passively reciting the monosyllabic verb ease during our exhalation can help this brain to coordinate with our parasympathetic nervous system. Will this make the rumination go away? No. Will it make it manageable? Yes. So this is ideal for sitting meditation. But you know what's also good for rumination? Brisk walking meditation. So the last thing you want to do is try crossing the street while you're knee-deep in rumination. That could end badly. So take a brisk walk around your block several times, over and over again, until 20 or 40 or 60 minutes have elapsed. Do this every 12 hours. Now, during the walking meditation, the brisk walking meditation, monosyllabic words probably will not serve you as well as polysyllabic ones. So during the inhalation, silently and mentally recite perceiving. During the exhalation, silently and mentally recite releasing. These are not affirmations. Why not? An affirmation is a pretty lie you tell about yourself as an act of magical thinking. This is not that. This is merely labeling processes already in motion. And by labeling, we're increasing the probability of our big old brain cooperating with these mechanisms. It's as simple as that. Use the link I gave you to get a proper evaluation of the role of rumination in your neurotype. In the meantime, start sitting or walking meditation. I think it could be great fun if together as a team we did that right now. So let's do that after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So let us come to the latest iteration of All Good's iconography and meditation. All Good is simply an archetype. There is no need to believe, petition, or supplicate, or praise a real or imagined entity. Please chant with me. The nudity of the All Good Ones remind us that with inhalations this we are wired to mindfully notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. 2 more times. The nudity of the All Good Ones remind us that with inhalations this we are wired to mindfully notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The nudity of the All Good Ones remind us that with inhalations this we are wired to mindfully notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Now the most efficient way to access Vairochana Karma Mundra's Om space element at our crown wheel is to gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger in our lap. So now let us collect 144 breaths. But how are we going to do that? Well, 144 is just 12 sets of 12 reps. Okay, well, how do we count 12 breaths on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb? Allow me to demonstrate. During our inhalation, we can advance the tip of our right thumb. As silently and mentally we recite this ease. Please practice with me. So we've counted 1 set of 12 repetitions. How do we count multiple sets? Well, we turn to our left hand. And so beginning with our index finger, this would be the first set, this would be the second set, and this would be the third set. Progressing thusly towards our little finger. This should take us about, give or take, 15 minutes. Now remember, our job is not to repress rumination. During our inhalation, so think of it this way, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever rumination we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less solid, could feel less permanent, could feel less defining. During our next inhalation, it might come screaming back into focus. That's fine. Just as we do not have 1 breath per life, but hundreds of thousands. Similarly, we're always noticing and releasing and noticing and releasing and noticing and releasing. For what we are truly releasing is our resistance to that which we noticed. Until eventually we get to the point where whatever comes, we let it come. Whatever stays, we let it stay. And whatever goes, we let it go. And if you want to get really trippy, whatever resistance to the present moment comes, we let it come. Whatever resistance to the present moment stays, we let it stay. Whatever resistance to the present moment goes, we let it go. Good morning. Welcome to the second quarter of this morning's guided meditation. Please chant with me. So we're going to chant an explanation of one of the facets of the iconography of this archetype. The translucence of the all good ones remind us that the translucence of the all good ones remind us that with exhalations these we are wired to physically relax and mentally release the settling into meditation's experience of non-graspability. So in other words, every time we silently and mentally recite the word ease during our exhalation, we find ourselves releasing. As we do, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less solid, could feel less permanent, could feel less defining. The translucence of the all good ones reminds us that with exhalations these we are wired to physically relax and mentally release the settling into meditation's experience of non-graspability. The translucence of the all good ones reminds us that as we ease into our exhalation, although we noticed during our previous previous inhalation could feel less solid, less permanent, and less defining. All right. Thank you for indulging the edit. One more time. The translucence of the all good ones reminds us that, let's track this. Let's try to make it a little easier on the eyeballs. Okay. The translucence of the all good ones reminds us that as we ease into our exhalation, all that we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less solid, less permanent, and less defining. The most efficient way to really plug into Akshobhya Karma Mudra's whom water elements at our heart wheel is to gingerly place the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger on the tip of our left middle finger, and do so in our laps. Please chant with me. The beauty of the all good ones reminds us of the highest love, which is the spontaneous, uncontrived, and effortless product of training in mindfulness and meditation. The beauty of the all good ones reminds us of the highest love, which is the spontaneous, uncontrived, and effortless product of training in mindfulness and meditation. The beauty of the all good ones reminds us of the highest love, which is the spontaneous, uncontrived, and effortless product of training in mindfulness and meditation. The most efficient way to really plug into Ratnasambhava Karma Mudra's Tram Earth element at our navel wheel is to gingerly place the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger and to rest it upon the tip of the left ring finger, and to stack these two hands upon our lap, as we see on the statue, the photograph of the statue of the wooden statue of the Buddha. Welcome to the final quarter of this morning's group practice. Please chant with me. The stability with which he sits and the abandon with which he sports reminds us of the effortless effort of centered spontaneity, the product of training in mindfulness and meditation. The stability with which he sits and the abandon with which he sports reminds us of the effortless effort of love-centered spontaneity, the product of training in mindfulness and meditation. The stability with which he sits and the abandon with which he sports reminds us of the effortless effort of love-centered spontaneity, the product of training in mindfulness and meditation. The most efficient way to plug into Ama Amoga Sadi Karma Mudra's wind element at our secret wheel between our navel and our pelvis is to gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger upon the tip of our left little finger in our lap. I'll be right back. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation. And the most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. Similarly, the most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 9.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.